Hello, welcome everybody. Welcome to the PWN January Level Up at Lunch. Now, this is a monthly meeting. We hold it via Zoom on the third Thursday of each month. And for those of you who are watching the PWN YouTube channel, be sure and click like and subscribe. All right, I want to thank our January sponsor, Elizabeth Stitt of Joyful Family Parenting. Also, thank you to Stephanie Shields, the CEO of Bookkeeping Central, for taking care of our PWN bookkeeping.
Now it's time for her to introduce our speaker. Bing, bing, bing. I am so glad that you came today because we have a phenomenal presenter. Carolyn Pistone is saving the planet with her real estate license. She is the president and managing director of Clear Blue Commercial. She has so many accolades and so many awards that it would take 35 minutes to introduce her, and then she would have nothing to say. So I want to make a few highlights. She is the 2023 Women Business Enterprise of the Year award winner for the Western region. She is a B Corp. She is a certified green business. Her company won Best for the World Company for exemplary social and environmental impact. And that's only a handful of the many other awards that she's done. She has a 7-figure business. She is a phenom. And Carolyn, the floor is yours. And I'm so glad that you're with us today. Everybody give her a nice big hand. Bum, 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 bum.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Katerina, for that glowing introduction that I will strive to live up to. If you had told me that I would be giving a speech about being a 7-figure phenom at any time, really previous to 2023, I would have laughed in your face. Because as all of you who will be reading my new book will know, to me, money's not even a real thing. I like to say that if you lose enough jobs, you get a great resume, and mine is particularly impressive. And as an exercise recently, I wrote down all of the jobs I'd ever had that I could remember, and it was an embarrassment of riches. And I went back I was looking for pivot points. At what point did my trajectory change, and what did I learn from that, and what did that mean? And when I was a freshman, the summer after my freshman year in college, I had to get a summer job. And at the time, the minimum wage was $2.43 an hour. And I found a job in the newspaper, because that's the way we found jobs then. That was $12 an hour and required no previous experience. And it didn't involve drug running or phone sex. So I thought, I am going to be rich, rich, rich. I am in. This is going to be great. So I went out the next morning. I got hired on the spot, and I became a fish gutter in a canning factory.
Oh my God.
And I was one of only 3 women in the entire plant. And I was one of only 2 college students that were there. Most of the other people that were employed there were convicts and ex-convicts who had been in the convict program. We stood for 8 hours a day, ankle deep in ice cold water. And I had a hook, I had boots, and I had big long gloves. And the big fish would come down the conveyor belt. You'd pick it up, you hook it, then you'd scoop it out. You'd throw the fish back on the conveyor belt, and the guts in a big bucket. And that's all we did all day, every day. We would stand in line during our breaks. We would all rush into the break room and stand in line for a turn at the hot water hose so that we could hose off our feet and the rest of ourselves, because they were numb. And it was always an internal struggle of whether I want my feet to be numb or my feet are really cold and I really want to heat them up, because warming them up hurts just as much as them being cold. I was terrified every minute I was there. There was always an undercurrent of violence and danger. And on my last day of work, a big fight broke out, which was my biggest fear. I was standing in the middle of a group of criminals who all had big hooks. Luckily, I was not injured, nor was anybody else at that time, but fish guts filled the air, flying everywhere. And on my next break, I went in to my boss and I quit. And he was laughing when he handed me my only check, because I only lasted there 5 days. And he was laughing because he had just won the pool about how long I would last. I remember going home and getting in the shower and just starting to cry, because here I was going to be rich and great. Now I was unemployed. And I looked down and I saw fish guts filling the drain. Now, luckily, I'm a person of perseverance. I went out the next day. I got another job that paid about half as much as fish gutting, but it was still 3 times the minimum wage. I became a lifeguard at the Elks Club. And I was very, very grateful in retrospect for the fact that I had the option of quitting that job. I was resourceful and privileged enough to know that I could go out and get another job. But I frequently think about that factory, which is still there. None of the technology has changed. Many of those people are still working there and probably not making much more than $12 an hour at this point. And it really made me start to think about, first of all, how lucky and grateful I am for all of the people that suffer and work so that I can have the life that I have. I think about it when I pick up a piece of fruit at the grocery store and I see that little tag on it. And that tells me that there was a person that put that tag on that piece of fruit and picked it. So I really wanted the world to be a better place because I was in it. And so through finding other jobs, I'm also a Leo, so I'm very bossy. So I knew I wanted to be the boss wherever I was. And I have been fortunate enough that I have had some really bossy positions. What I discovered in being a boss and always having a boss is that I am completely unmanageable. I was always the person who was running into my boss to say, I have a great idea. We should do this and this. And they were always like, well, thank you for your great idea, Carolyn. And please go back and do your job. I also found myself confronted with situations that were counter to my values. In some cases, wrong, that struck me as wrong at the core, and sometimes, yeah, even stuff that's maybe illegal. I always thought, well, I'll just bring everybody's attention to this and they will fix it and make it right. And everybody will say, thank you, Carolyn, which is not the case. Usually the solution to that problem is get rid of Carolyn. So I started out to want to make the world a better place and make the world a better place with my business. And my business is a commercial real estate business. And we have all the certifications that we talked about, not just because that Katerina talked about, not just because we're such good people and we want to make the world a better place, although that is true. It leaves us really, really well positioned to work with large corporations and government entities because there are set aside contracts for people with those certifications, and big business needs to do business with small business. There are mandates in place. So when I was working for a large commercial real estate company, I was on the 47th floor at 101 California, overlooking the Bay Bridge. And I had an office, and I used to love to sit and look out the window and see all the commerce that comes and goes out of the Port of San Francisco and the Port of Oakland. And I was there one morning. It was fogged in. One of almost every morning, it was fogged in. And that was the day that a large oil tanker hit the Bay Bridge. And as the fog lifted, I saw this oil tanker, the Costco Busan, was leaning over on its side, just spilling all of its contents out into the bay. And it stayed there for 7 days. In the meantime, I watched hundreds, literally hundreds of big cargo ships coming in and out of the San Francisco Bay, dragging that oil out into the Pacific Ocean and dragging it up the Bay Delta and dragging it all over. And I thought to myself, you know, if I had dropped a bottle of olive oil bringing in my groceries, I would lock off the front door, I would clean it up, and then I would allow people in and out. Pretty simple, would take 10 minutes max. And I realized that there was no such mechanism to, you know, that Golden Gate is not an actual gate. You can't close it. And I thought, you know, as human beings, we place ourselves above the plants and the animals and the planet. But this was an illustration for me that now we are putting commerce above even humanity. We are putting commerce above all else. And like I said earlier, money's not even a real thing. It's just an idea somebody came up with about how we could express our value. And it was really at that moment that I decided I wanted to devote my working life to being a force for good for the planet and for humanity. A couple of years later, I was working for this same company that brought me in to take over to do property management for a bunch of properties that were in foreclosure. And I assembled a great team, and over a couple of years, we expanded our portfolio, and we did such a good job that all of the properties leased up and sold. And then that big company called me up and said, "Thank you very much, Carolyn, we're going to close your office." At which point I went home to my husband to tell him that, yes, I'd lost my job again. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to do next. I went in the next morning to lay off my entire team. And they all came to me and said, "We really believe in you, and we believe in your mission. And if you want to start your own company, we're with you. We'll stay." And I was like, "Oh, I guess I got to make a company now. I guess I have to do this." And so I thought, well, I have no idea how I'm going to pay all of these people. But we built the company from that. And that was just over 10 years ago. And 5 years into that 10-year, we became a 7-figure business. And I have a lot of things that I look at about what being a 7-figure business means. And I wish I could tell you all how to make $1 million. But the one thing I found is that you can't make $1 million as a solopreneur. You need a team, and you need to be smart about what that team provides. Because what I discovered really quickly was I knew how to do my job, and all my team members knew how to do their job. But that didn't involve building a company and building a brand and creating processes and procedures and ways in which we would make money. and be profitable? And how could we have impact? Luckily for me, I think, and hopefully luckily for the planet, because I've never been that interested in money, I didn't set out to be a 7-figure business. I didn't set out to be any dollar figure business at all. I set out to see what is the most impact that I can have. And I was lucky to be in the commercial real estate business because that's a whole lot of money that's changing hands and moving around and driving the economy. The opportunities for impact in that space are huge. I can tell you that I've never liked sales, which is probably why I take a lot of Katarina's sales programs. But if you're going to sell something, sell whatever the highest value product is you can find. And that's commercial real estate. Last year, we did our first $10 million sale. We sold a plot of land. Now, our commission on that was not $10 million, but it is part of our sales volume. So I'll take it. And that's 8 figures. I would like to, I have tips. I've given this talk before, and my talk is always about impact and mission and values and living your truth and being who you are. But when I look at the title 7-Figure Phenom, people want some tips. So I have a couple of tips. The first tip, and this is a quote from Barack Obama, and it's very simple. Better is good. Do not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Do not wait till you have the perfect product. Do not wait till you have the perfect pitch. Do not wait until you have the perfect operations. Don't even wait until you know till you have a goal. Constantly improve what you're offering, how you do what you do, listen to ideas, and don't shoot them down. One of the things I have really prided myself and my business on is our open door policy. One of the things that we do monetarily is we take a percentage of our revenue, not our profits, our revenue every year, and we divide it equally across everybody in the company. And what that means is whether you're a guy that has a tool belt and a plunger, or a girl, or you're a high-performing salesperson that's making 6 or hopefully one day 7 figures, everybody's got a stake in everybody else's success. I felt it was inherently bad business in all the other big companies I worked with to have all of the salespeople competing against everybody at the next desk. It's bad for morale. It's bad for business. And it's bad for the clients. So we got rid of that. There was one day we had a particularly difficult problem, and I had two of my managers were in my office, and we were trying to talk about how to best serve this client that had a real dilemma. And one of my assistant engineers, who was wearing a tool belt and holding a plunger at the time, was standing in the doorway to my office because he had something he wanted to say. And he was waiting for a break in the action. And when it came, all of a sudden he said, what you should do is have him buy both properties. Now, first of all, here I am, this big real estate genius. And oh my God, the guy with the plunger is the one who came up with the right solution. However, had I not created an environment that really valued everybody's input and created an environment where there was open communication, he would have not, first of all, he wouldn't have even thought of that because he wouldn't really understand what else was going on in the company. And he wouldn't have felt invited to give his input. And he got a nice bonus that year, as did everybody else. So that is super important. Let me look. Oh, here's the other thing. And this is really important, and it's challenging to be a solopreneur. But you should never be the only revenue producer in your company. You will need to hire people to help execute some of your strategies. But if you're the only person in your company that is selling what you do, you are limited to how long you're going to live and how long your stamina and your health is going to hold out. You're limited to how many hours there are in the day. You need to have people that are working for you and creating revenue, whether you're in Tahiti or not. So that would be first and foremost, number one. The other thing, and I learned this the hard way, and I'm sure all of you have too, but you have to pay yourself first. You have to pay yourself first. And that can be hard for women to do. That can be hard for new business owners to do. But the fact is that in order to create the vision and create the revenue, you cannot, as you all know, you cannot pour into others if your cup is empty. For the first 4 years of my business, I did not pay myself at all. And I went bankrupt and lost my house doing it. And ended up having to lay off all these wonderful people, about half of whom I have since hired back. But it was the hardest lesson I ever had to learn. If you are not paying yourself and paying yourself first, you do not have a business. You have a very expensive hobby. So important. These are two important things that I've learned the hard way and have come to me later. But boy, I embrace them now, and I encourage all of you to embrace them as well. The other thing that has been very important to me is being true to myself. And I know as a woman, and as a woman growing older and having some experience, it is very difficult to be true to yourself or really even acknowledge your own value and what is your unique value proposition, because it has nothing to do with what's on your business card. One of my mentors in business from early on, and he's a former boss. There were two things that he told me. When I lost my first big job, and I was devastated. When I lost my first big job, I took every paper I had written on, I printed out everything on my computer, everything that had crossed my desk, I boxed it all up and took all my folders. And I was convinced that this was my work. I had to take this with me to whatever I was going to do next. And I took those boxes to 4 more jobs and 3 more houses. And my then mentor said to me, he said, "Have you ever opened those boxes?" And I said, "Well, I open the boxes that have my desk tchotchkes on them, and the photos and stuff. But other than that, not really." And he said, "Get rid of them." He said, "The best thing that you bring to any room that you're in is yourself. And you are going to take that with you wherever you go. So don't think that any of your value is contained in those boxes." So I got rid of those. When I first went to work for him, and he was the guy that gave me my first big break, after I'd been with him about a month and a half, he gave me this amazing compliment. And he said, "The best thing about you, Carolyn, is that you are what you seem to be." And that I've taken that with me, and that has filled me later. If I know I said earlier that I'm completely unmanageable, part of that is because I can't do anything that's contrary to my values, even in business. And I don't care how much money you pay me. It's not going to work for me. Therefore, I've really worked to bring my whole self to my whole life, and that's what success means to me. You need to bring to your business and your life those things that are uniquely you, where you really have an impact in the world. Especially for me, getting into real estate, I'll tell you honestly, I don't have a lot of interest in real estate. And there are a lot of not so good people that are in the same business that I'm in. For me, it's what's the most impact that I can have. One story I can tell you is that we just locally here around my office, we started doing turf conversions, where you take out the lawn and you put in a drip system and mulch and drought tolerant plants. So I started doing this in the businesses in the buildings that I managed. I finally got to the biggest building that I managed, and it was owned by a big real estate investment trust on the East Coast. They had no interest in this stupid little building in Petaluma that was just a line item on their spreadsheet. I said, I want to do this turf conversion. And they said, whatever. I went and I got a bid, and I discovered that I really underestimated the square footage, because the bid came back at $250,000 and would pay for itself in water savings in 42 years. So this was definitely a non-starter for my client. So I went back to the landscape company and I said, what if I could get the materials donated and I could get 150 volunteers? Would you rebid it and just do the prep work? And they said, absolutely. They came back, they did the prep work. And as it happens, since I was such a good customer, they donated a front loader and an operator for the day. We got 150 volunteers. We got 2 bands. We got the local massage school to come out and give everybody massages. And we reached out to all of the high schools, because they all have to do community service work in order to graduate. And we had all of these volunteers show up. And instead of it taking 6 weeks and costing $250,000, it took 6 hours, and it cost $70,000, which was less than the landscaping budget for that. And since we came out of the entertainment industry, we did this really cool video about it and what we did. Understandably, I got a whole lot of questions from the East Coast when I started turning in my invoices, like, why are there massage therapists on the landscaping budget? And who is the Bad Apple String Band? Luckily, I had this wonderful video that I was able to send them. And not only did they get it and were happy about it, they're a publicly traded company. They showed it at their annual shareholders meeting. So we were able to take something that was just a line item on somebody's spreadsheet and turn it into something that a giant company and all its investors could feel really good about themselves for. And of course, I love that. And I have to say that I can now say, through all the turf conversions that we've done, just within about a half mile of where I'm standing right now, I have personally saved over 30 million gallons of water and counting. So that's very, very exciting to me. It's all about the impact. And we just recently, we've been able to put EV charging stations in at all our buildings. and do LED conversions. There's all these different types of things that we have been able to add to our data that adds to our impact. Also, I look at how we have personally impacted our employees. Every single employee that is with us today has been able to purchase their own home since they've been with us. That's an amazing thing. The young man with the tool belt and the plunger, we convinced him to go to night school at the local JC, and he is now the head of IT and desktop support for Corbell, the champagne company. And they fly him all around in the private Corbell jet so that he can deal with all the different computer stuff all over the world. That's what I'm most proud of. These are the things that are impactful and exciting to me. So I really encourage everybody, number one, bring your whole self to your whole life. It's the best thing you've got. It's the key, not just to success and monetary success. It is the key to happiness and joy and fulfilling your life's mission. We're all here for a purpose. So we should all be working that purpose all the time. One of the things that I do when I do workshops with people is I talk a lot about values. And one of the early exercises I used to do that I will probably do with other groups in the future is we do some exercises around mission and values. I put out this quick list of 100 values, and I picked 100 because I could fit it on one page and send it out to everybody. I have everybody in the room go ahead and circle your top 5, the top 5 that are most relevant to you. And everybody freaks out. They're all like, do we have to put our name on this? And they all want to get it right. And I'm like, this is just the first part of the exercise. Just flow with it, people. And then inevitably I would get the question, okay, do you mean our values at work or our values in life? And it's amazing to me that I still get that question, because the fact is your values are your values. And if your values are different at work than they are in your life, I would suggest that you're working in the wrong place. Then we would take, of those values, we would then take the top 5, we would make a consensus. And then we would look at, okay, these are our shared top 5 values. These are the things that we can all get behind. And there's nothing bad on this. Genocide isn't on the list, animal cruelty, pollution, none of those things are on the list. They're all good things. So then we take this group of values, and those become our touchstone for whenever we are working together. Even if it's just for today, these are the values that we are going to agree, we have created consensus on, and we're going to use these for every decision we make and how we interact with each other. Then the next question is, why do y'all come to work? And inevitably it's like, well, I'll pay the bills, and I got to eat, and blah, and I've got kids in college, or whatever the answers are. Yes, that's true. But why do you come to work here? Nobody went out with a gun and rounded you all up and said, this is not a prison, and did not say you have to work here. You have a choice about where you work. So let's really talk about why you chose to come to work here. Then you look at, what is the purpose of the business itself? Why does the business exist? Who do we serve, and why? And why do we do business in the way that we do? Then you take those three steps, and that's how you create your mission statement. And you will not be surprised to learn that not only do I do this exercise at work, and I do it frequently. And not only do I do it in workshops, but I do it at home as well. My husband and I have done this several times when we have key decisions to make. Both my children have mission statements. And it was great when they were learning to read and write. And I was looking at discipline. They'd all have to write, they'd have to write out their mission statement, 10 times. um, and even now as adults, I'm able to point to them and go, remember your mission statement. That's not part of that. The last thing and the most important thing about being, about getting your business to 7 figures or whatever your goal is have fun. It's got to be fun. We had a large building that we managed that was leased to a large rail line, smart train, those of you that are in the area that know about it. So for when they moved in, we threw a reception for them. And one of my engineers, his mom had a catering company, and another engineer was a musician and he had a band. My office manager was a dancer. And one morning in the shower, I rewrote the words to Folsom Prison Blues by Johnny Cash, because it's got that great train downbeat in it. And we served them breakfast. We had a band there, and then we did a flash mob at this. So we had created this thing. And, since my husband was there, we also happened to have 3 cameras, and we made a video. Now, we didn't make any money doing that particular thing, but everybody in our company felt fully utilized and seen and heard. And we had best day at work ever. It was so fun. And I am a 7-figure phenom. So who's to say that fun wasn't a major, major part of making that happen?
Carolyn, you are so fabulous and amazing and wonderful. Thank you for that very, very inspirational program. Everybody give her a nice, nice big hand. And please put in the chat how her talk impacted you. Thank you, Carolyn. And
All right.
Carolyn, please put your contact info in the chat for all the guys so that they can connect with you.
All right. Thank you for that. Thanks, Carolyn. That was wonderful. I loved how animated you were. It's probably good that you're not sitting, right? That's great. And yeah, Priscilla wanted to know, be sure you put in where can we purchase your book? So want to make sure and put that in there as well.
My book will be released in the 3rd quarter, and I will definitely reach out to Katerina and the rest of you, make because I will be so grateful. And certainly anybody who's ever heard me speak will have an opportunity to buy it at a really, really affordable rate.
Okay, that sounds good. And I will see you all later on. Hopefully we'll see quite a few of you next week on the 25th of January in Santa Cruz at our mixer. And then of course, we're going to be back here on Zoom a month from now, February. I forget what the date is, but it's going to be the 3rd Thursday of February, whatever date that is. Anyway, all right. Thanks everyone.